Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams. And today, I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment. In this episode of the Power of Design podcast, I'm having a conversation with Riley Clements. Riley is the business development professional with DPR Construction. During our conversation, we talk about technology, what does it need to be a really good professional in the business development world, and how to take care of yourself and your family while trying to be successful in the construction world. This is my conversation with Riley. Riley, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
Doing wonderful, Jack. Thanks for being here. This is an impressive seat for all the people that have come before me.
Thank you, man. I'm very happy about what I've done so far. But this conference room it was just a coincidence that my logo and my brand colors, they're like this orange and this shape.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think this is my full podcast studio. I'm like, it was just a coincidence. But it works.
It's coordinated very well.
People love it. Yeah. So that's the power of design right there.
Yeah.
So tell me about your day today. What did you do?
During COVID, I was lucky enough to have my firstborn. So I adjusted my morning schedule to get up at 5 a.m., do a big workout. That's the only time I have time for myself, really.
Nice.
And get that out of the way, and then jump into being a dad, and then get to my breakfast meeting or coffee that I most likely have every day.
Yeah.
And then just jump into meeting with the teams and figuring out kind of where we're headed to next. And days always change, whether I'm traveling for pursuits or meeting different clients in different locations. But generally speaking, hustle and bustle every day.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Nothing different than what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Got to hustle, man.
So tell me, where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Charlotte.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Charlotte. I went to Charlotte Catholic High School. And so I was part of my dad's actually was here and owned a general contractor for many years. So he's been in construction for 40 years. And that's kind of just the family business I followed.
Yeah.
When I got done with school, I ended up, sweeping floors and found my way to business development at DPR Construction. So,
wow.
There's obviously a lot of time in between that.
Yeah.
But I'm from a big family, and it's always been about communication, and whether it's you're helping your sister or your client, it's I view everyone as people that I can help.
So I'm interested to learn, how did you find your way to business development? Because there are many roles in construction, in our industry. And that's why I love it. There's room for everybody depending on your skills. You can focus in any area. So how did you find that was the way you want to continue growing and developing? Because you can do also business development for other industries or, so how did that happen?
It was interesting. My wife, McKenna, is absolute rock, and she's been one of the guiding forces in my career. And she's always been in sales, and so that's just one of those things that it was kind of in the back of my head. But kind of like starting early in my career, I told you I was sweeping floors, and like literally it was like sweeping floors. And then like I was told I'm better at talking, and then so I go into like office manager role, then became like a project manager for a global facilities company. That kind of evolved into being more client facing, right? Yeah. Like you just client says, hey, I need A, B, and C fixed. And so that's, so you just started to like learn how to communicate with clients, which, most people like evolve into doing that, whether it be like just nerves or how do you approach things like that. And that just came fairly natural to me. I ended up moving into project manager role at a Fortune 50 company, and ran the East portfolio for that company. And it was just really managing assets all across the East Coast for just a couple end users, right?
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I really enjoyed that client interaction you got every single day, right? Is saying, hey, look, like, can you help me with this? And then it just like was my complete passion. That evolved into my first true sales opportunity, which was at my previous company, which was CBI. Awesome. You know, I obviously dealt with you there as well. And that they gave me the opportunity to really create who I wanted to be.
Nice.
Right. And it was the first time where it's like, all right, you don't have like this, 30,000 employee organization to kind of telling you what to do. This is like, hey, like, here's the keys. This is what, ideally we want you to achieve, and make it yours. Right. And so it gave me the first opportunity to like meet the people I wanted to work with, and kind of create that kind of world of, hey, like, what's the type of project I want to do? Who are the people that I want to have on the team to be able to go achieve those goals? And that really was the point in time where I was like, wow, I'm like pretty solid at like understanding like sales and the process and the pipeline and like forecasting and like how to organize deals and like bringing them through the door. And then also just like kind of taking care of your clients.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the key, right? Is just making sure it's just good client management and taking care of things. And, it got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah.
And there came along an opportunity where, with DPR, which I'm still pinching myself, right? Like you think about a general contractor, a DPR is a very large one, right?
Sure.
In Charlotte, we have 450, just over 400 men and women. And there's one BDC. Right. So, it's a rare role to have for a general contractor. And I was lucky enough to be selected to take over this role, and really make it my own. And so it's been an incredible path, super lucky and gracious for the opportunity I've been given at DPR. And it's been, an amazing journey so far.
That's amazing. I've always been very passionate about sales, marketing, branding, business development, all the work that it takes to bring business in, because no matter what your craft is, you need to sell it before you do anything. Yeah. If you don't sell, nothing happens. And that's one of the things that in my experience when I used to work for other firms, you really never have the pressure to sell unless you're part of the business development team. So I kind of always saw it from afar, and and I think I had a lot of misconceptions that you have. Oh yeah, this is hard, and you need to do this, or the car salesman figure that it's out there, but when I started my own business, I'm like, okay, if I want to pay my bills, I need to sell. Yeah. So I need, how do you sell? So I started kind of getting into it. All right, how does this work? Yeah. Developing relationships, understanding the whole ecosystem of communication that starts with branding, what's marketing, what's business development, how do you close a sale, satisfy the client, and then you do it over and over again, and then do it on your own terms, with your own personality, with your own authenticity. And more than that, believing in your product or service. Yeah. And one of the things that I said is, people don't buy products or services. They buy experiences. They buy how they feel when they're interacting with your product or service. That's what they want. They want to feel, man, I'm being taken care of. I have quality professionals working on my thing that is very important to me. And I feel during that process, I feel value. I feel appreciated. So that's what people are buying. And that's one of the things that is very personal and human. That sometimes when we said, oh yeah, sales or business development sounds very transactional, but it's not. Absolutely not. It's very human. It's very relationship driven. And sometimes I find myself having a hard time when somebody asks, let's say they want a proposal for a project. Yeah, just send me a number. And I'm like sending this thing via email. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, there is no relationship here. Yeah. I don't even have the opportunity to present or show what we're selling. I'm not selling what you're buying. I cannot explain the experience. Yeah. So how do you try to really, show what you're selling, because I would say that people buy you first, appreciating you. And then what you bring to the table, how do you try to bring that humanness to the transaction where sometimes people are not looking for that?
Yeah, it's as we were kind of just conversing about that, it's, you bring up like the used car salesman, right?
Yes.
Where it's like the widget.
Yeah.
And it's while it's like that is 97% of sales is selling a thing, right? It's so much not harder, but different to sell an experience like you were referencing, right? And, it getting to the point of like our clients buy, yes, they buy your service, but they're buying you as well.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the first hurdles is to get them to like you.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, no one's going to want to do business with someone that like just doesn't want to even like, God, like Jack's calling me again, like ignore.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and sometimes like that's the first hurdle you got to get over.
Right.
And what's been great about jumping into this role and part of my career before was like really selling more of a thing. Now it's more of just like, hey, let's get to know each other first.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were talking about, earlier, is just like creating that intentional friendship first, right? Like getting to know someone. It's like, if a project never happens from it,
yeah,
then that's totally
nothing
acceptable.
Changes. Yeah. That's
right. Like we still have a great friendship, right?
Sure.
And in the nature of the business that I'm in, right? There's a ton of incredible general contractors out there, right? They're all really great, right? And what I have to do every single day is wake up and think, all right, well, like, what are the differentiators about what we do?
Yeah.
And who are the people that need to hear what those things are? And right. And that's where that's my to-do list every single day, is identifying that next conversation, the next influencer, and allowing like that person to hear the right message. And it might take 1 or 2 or 3 conversations. But when you get the feedback of saying, hey, look, Riley, like we want to work with you.
Yeah.
And then your company, right? Like,
sure.
That's a great conversation to have. And I think that's really, hopefully that answered your question in like a different way.
Yeah,
but, like that's definitely, kind of the approach that I try to have every single day.
Yeah. One of the things I think about a lot is, you need to feel confident selling what you're selling, right?
Yeah.
Many times I know this had happened to you when somebody's selling you something that they don't believe in it. So it's really hard if you don't believe in your own product or service. You don't have the confidence to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're not selling a thing and we're trying to sell ourselves to people, I will say that the most important sales transaction that you can do is when you sell yourself to yourself. You're confident enough with who you are and how you feel about yourself that you are, number one, okay with rejection. All right, it's not personal.
Yeah,
that's fine. It might somebody else. And number two, that what you're bringing to the table is not for your own benefit. That what you have will benefit the other person or company. The value, and then it becomes more than convincing the other person. It becomes more about how do I communicate clearly enough the benefits that we bring to you so you can use it, to achieve your own goals.
Yeah.
And that completely turns the narrative in your head. Now I want to help, and I know what I have is going to help you. Now, I know it's not going to help everybody because there are some people that they're not a match. It's not, they're not aligned with your values, your culture, who you are. So that's another thing that is key. How do you identify who's the person who's going to really appreciate what you bring to the table?
Yeah.
So you can really add that value and, grow together.
Yeah. I mean, so the question really is a client identification, right? And that is, when it comes to, I need to talk just a little bit about who I work for, right? So, and being DPR Construction, right? Like we have 5 core markets. It's very fairly specific in the world of everything that's construction, $1 trillion industry, right? We have higher education, commercial, life sciences, which is a huge buzzword nowadays, of course in Charlotte, right? Advanced technology, and then of course commercial, right? So what that allows us to do is first like really focus immediately on what we do, right? And the nature of the work we also do is very specific. We target very technical projects, right? Whether it's, life sciences, like heavy CGMP manufacturing lab work, where it's very in depth and you're creating pharmaceuticals and filler plants and line processing, whether it's commercial, in that we're building, million square foot tenant improvement projects where it's like, yeah, if you want to come through and do a 30,000 square foot TI, it's like, yeah, there's technical aspects to it.
Sure.
But when we take it in scale and go up to a million square feet, like that's a big difference. And then like higher education, right? We're doing a really cool project we're just kicking off for a university where it's a lab-based advanced manufacturing kind of grant-based research facility, right? Where we're bringing in our technology from advanced manufacturing, our intelligence, internal, as well as life science and applying it in a higher education. Right. It's like, we can certainly go in there and build a bunch of classrooms, but like when you're doing like in-depth lab stuff. So the process of those types of project types that fit who we are and our people, right, that are individuals every day, they like to build that technical stuff. We recruit the people that like to build like the hairy, fun, intricate things. It allows me to have a client list that's like yay big. Right. Because there's not that many people out there that do that type of work.
Sure.
Right. And, it doesn't need to be some big project, right? Like if it's a fun project, but it has technical capabilities to it, like, that's also a great fit for us.
Sure.
Right. And so client identification is something that, that we take very, very seriously. Right. And, it's funny when I first started working at DPR, right? Like we have a very strategic process at, what that client identification, does it match who we are before we even pursue a project or a client, right? It's kind of a filtering process. And the first, 10 or 12 jobs I brought in, they're like, that's not a right fit.
Yeah.
And it's like, here are the couple things that you need to think about differently. And it's good to have that process, right? Because it keeps us honest as to like, hey, like, let's make sure we pursue the work that keeps our people, having a good time, having fun. Yeah. And it's been a blast for sure. I've definitely enjoyed it. And there's lots of opportunities in Charlotte. Yeah. The advancements in what we're getting from different types of projects, like whether it be life sciences, data centers are starting to pop up a little bit more. That we do a ton of data center work and a ton of life science work. But those are very intricate things that, not every contractor can do, but we're best in class, right? So it allows us to really pursue work with those client types.
Yeah. And I'm sure that the current climate is helping, there's a lot of activity in the market. There are a lot of projects going on that it gets easier to say, I'm only going to work with the clients that are identified are a match. Because, there are times when there is no work, you do whatever it takes. You do any kinds of project. Yeah. So I'm sure that at some point that client identification starts matching, like, oh man, we have these employees, we need to feed them. Let's do whatever it takes because that needs to happen. Yeah. That's also something that I think that's where probably most companies, they really show who they are when things are really hard and you start adjusting yourself to really, okay, what is it that really matter here? Yeah. What are we concerned about? Who's first? And how do we, readjust to get out of this situation? Yeah. Somehow.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, right? Like one of the things, I mentioned we have those 5 core markets, and what is the hottest construction type in Charlotte right now? Apartments. What's the second hottest construction type right now? Industrial, right? A lot of our competition is screaming that direction to go knock those things out. Yes. We can't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Our management committee will, they're just like, it's absolute hard no. Right? Yeah. Like focus on who we are at our core. Yeah. We're technical builders. Yeah. Right. And while it's trendy and like it's great work and there's a ton of it, it's not what brought us to where we are now. Yeah. We're a top 10 general contractor in the nation. And we don't do some of the most common work that's out there. Yeah. You won't see our cranes attached to an apartment building. You won't see our cranes attached to a big senior living facility, right? Like you won't see us doing a bunch of car washes. Like we build hospitals, we build data centers, we do production facilities, right? Like that's the kind of stuff that we do, and it's fun when we come back and look at ourselves, and at the end of the day, it's like we've done great work that makes our people happy every single day, and our clients love us, and we can still climb up the rankings.
Yeah. What do you do yourself to keep your your mind sharp, your body, your ideas, your thinking, because doing what you do is hard. There is a lot of mental and physical energy that you need to do every single day. What do you do to keep yourself up to speed in everything and strong and dynamic?
It's it was. I feel like one of my secret powers, I mean, as funny as it is that I'm ADD.
That's a good one.
It was when I was in middle school, like it was the buzzword to have like ADD, and then you thrown some Adderall, right? And and then it just kind of kills it, right? And so I've really kind of embraced it over the years, right? Just the ability to constantly think about 30 things, right?
Yes.
And it's been one of those things that every single day, like I get up and I go do that early morning workout. And I look at my calendar and I see what I got during the day, right? Like the majority of what I do is constant meetings with different types of people,
yes,
right? Whether it's brokers, architects, owners, consultants, engineers, things like that, right? And so there's a lot of strategy to consistently fill in your schedule.
Yeah.
The majority of what I do is working 3 weeks out, right? So every day I'll work on 3 weeks from now. It's like, all right, well, how do I get that next strategic lunch with a broker that I want to get in front of for a specific project type?
Right.
I also work client identification way early in the process, right? And a process that we use and I've used for a long time is working left and the cycle, right? If you get an RFP, you've already lost.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we try to do is, and what I try to do every day is, all right, how do you get to a client before a project? And so, staying sharp really for me is just trying to clear my head every single day and focus on the day that I'm working on.
Yeah.
During the afternoon, I spend about 2 hours every day just focusing on, what's next 3 weeks from now. Right. And I keep focusing on that, always that 3 week to look ahead, just to make sure that we're constantly pushing forward.
Yeah.
Right. We have those 5 core markets, and we have identified clients for each of those. And so, what we try to do is every day just think how do we advance each one of these clients one step further?
Yeah. So that variety kind of fits how your mind works, doing many different things at the same time.
Yeah.
Looking at what's going to happen in the future. So what do you think is the most difficult type of tasks that you face, that you struggle with?
I think, what it used to be was follow-up, which is the number one cardinal rule for being a good, good person is follow-up.
That's hard.
It was something that I have had to learn in a hard way that if you don't follow up, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And how do you do that?
So from my end, right, is that
I'm asking for a friend.
I had a conversation today, right, and it's with a friend of mine that just started his own business, and he's like, hey, I need an introduction, and right, and so one of the things I love to do is just connect people, right, and it's like if I know that there's a resource to be connected, is doing that, and so I connected, and I said, all right, well, you need to meet these 3 people, and that's the follow-up, right? And then sometimes you put that on your to-do list, right? You mentioned before this meeting, how many things did you get done today? Yeah. And so it's for me, right? It's okay, well, I said I was going to just guide 3 people. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Yeah. So my follow-ups are immediate. If I don't do it right then and there,
that's right,
then I will forget about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that I have had to learn to do every single time, or else if for some reason that's just, wasn't the best at it. Yeah. So if I don't get it done now, it's just not going to get done. Right. Sure. And so that's why a lot of people I interact with are you're so fast. You just get stuff done so quickly. And that's because I really live by that same. You have to. Yeah.
Do you have any system, checklist or calendar where you put things in and you kind of see, because, we don't remember everything.
Yeah. So really I live by my outlook, right? And you can ask my wife as well. It's right. Like she doesn't schedule time on my calendar, then it doesn't exist, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
She argued with me that's like, I shouldn't have to schedule time with you. And then all of a sudden she got very busy with her career, and then I had to start scheduling time with her. It's like, I gotcha. Right. And so, we don't have family calendars and like that, but we cross schedule. But yeah, I use, my biggest thing is OneNote. I mean, I pretty much live on it.
Yeah.
That's my guiding light when it comes to like, hey, like, that's where my list lives on my client target list.
Yeah.
Who are you going to check every single day? What's the last action item? Things like that. Waking up every morning, looking at my calendar, say, all right, well, got to wear a suit today. Right.
Yeah.
And like, that's the kind of stuff that like always triggers kind of the calendar really, I put on my calendar, like when to call people.
Yeah.
Right. Like you get done with the conversation. They say, call me.
Oh, that's a good one.
Call me in a month and a half. I put that on my calendar to call the guy in a month and a half. And so like, that's the kind of stuff that just constantly triggers me.
Yeah. I've been alternating between digital and paper. I always go back and forth, but I think my superpower is checklist. I make checklist, and I do a checklist every single day. Every single day I do a new one, but then I have another master checklist and I separate checklist.
Yeah.
But when I see the checklist and I have like this routine that now is like part of my life, when I create the check boxes and I do like a shadow and everything and I make it nice. And I'm kind of like,
course you would.
Yeah. When I'm doing it, I'm like, I'm getting into, this is going to get ready to go into battle. And I check and then I go back and.
You know what's really good if you so I had a notebook for years, right? And we have the OneNote that kind of keeps track of master lists, but I'm sure if you look at your phone, right, you're not one of those people that has 10,000 emails sitting in your inbox, right? You're someone that has a very clean notification.
Yeah.
That's my kind of my mental issue as well. It's like I can't have a single notification or else I go nuts, right? And so one thing that I found with and I have an iPhone, so for your Android users, first of all, green text are terrible. Let's just all agree. But the reminders app is critical for me. And so it will constantly bug you until it's done.
Yes.
And so for those critical things that like, I will just go ahead and just set a reminder and it will make me go nuts until I get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that's, that's not
one thing that I do a lot is I send emails to myself.
Yeah, I sent 2 today.
Yeah, I send emails to myself, and that's the only way I can get something done is if I send the email. Then I use that as my to-do list sometimes.
Yeah, my dad was infamous before, like, the iPads and all the things, is he would leave himself voicemails.
Oh, wow.
He was like,
say, hey
man,
what's
Jim,
going on?
Don't be an idiot. Like, do this.
How you doing, man? Good to hear your voice.
Yeah,
I will leave myself pretty nice messages. That's a good idea, man.
Well, yeah, sometimes,
because you're hearing your own voice. That's powerful.
Yeah, it's like, knock, knock, buddy. Like, get it together today. Like, these are 3 things that you already forgot, you know? So, there's just different ways. I think technology for me, like in a personal level, right, is like, I live by my iPad and my iPhone, right? Without those 2 things that, my life could not function.
Sure.
So, but yeah, those are critical for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach my son these kind of things, routines, things that they don't teach you at school.
It's very regimented.
Yes. So I'm trying to explain the value of the checklist, because there many times he's like, oh, I forgot. I'm like, I understand that you forgot because our brain is not made to hold all this information. Mm-hmm. Get on with the checklist. You'll see what happens. But, he's still too young. He's like, yeah, sure, you old man.
Yeah. It's interesting, like nowadays,
this
right?
old
like
school thing.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, right? Like it used to be like, I feel like in a lunch meeting, it was appropriate for you to bring a notebook, right? And like write down, hey, like, let me just take this note down while we're talking, right? And nowadays, like, all my notes are on my phone.
Yeah.
And so how awkward and inappropriate does it feel to, like, to bring out your phone and be like, I'm not looking, I swear I'm not looking at an email, but like I'm writing a note down. So those were like one of those things. It's like, it's just another like societal thing we need to work through. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, majority of the people I know I run into nowadays, like the notes app is what controls their life, right? Like, and that reminders app and the checklist app, things like that. So, but yeah, the power of the notepad is critical.
Yeah.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio. a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
What advice will you give, a younger person in our profession that they want to, grow and, achieve their goals and go getter and, grow faster and be better and they're all energized and power, but they don't have a lot of experience? What will you say are the top maybe 2 or 3 skills somebody should focus on to really advance their career?
So I'll get to the skills in a second, but one of the things just from a career advancement thing that I thought was really important to me just in my career was removing, like, as you grow up, right? Like you get out of school when you're 20 something and then you get in, late into 20s and then you like everyone's kind of have careers and then you realize like, look, I can be better. Like there's more to me than like working XYZ job. What that was me when I was at that global facilities company, right? Like I knew I could achieve more.
Yeah.
Right. And what I realized is that I needed to trim down the people around me and bring in people around me to be that are where I want to be. Right. And sometimes those people may not be like 24, 25 years old at where I was. Right. But it's surrounding you and your family with people that are going to progress or where you want to be.
Right.
Right. And that's so important. So
that's huge.
I did that in my 20s. And it was so vital to me to be able to just kind of like trim out the unnecessary noise. Right. And those, people, I still go to bars and things like that. Right. But it's the people that like just seem like a distraction.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard that you are pretty much the average of the 5 people you relate the most to. Mm-hmm. In terms of your life, your income, what you do. Because if you see others doing bigger things, you say, if you can do it, I can do it. And if they're close to you, that's a motivation and a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's, to the second half of your question, I mean, it reminded me of the 3 that you were asking about, like the 3 targets or from my end, right? It's like, what are the 3 attributes to like success?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think really it's the skill sets needed for me specifically to be in my job is high communication, the ability to communicate verbally and in written word. You've probably done strengths finders before, right? My number 1 strength is empathy, which is very rare.
Yeah.
And I'm a high emotion person, right? And I read into everything that is written and said very heavily. And so my ability to communicate in that emotion and see emotion and deliver emotion is really critical into creating an intentional relationship, right? The conversations you and I have are way in depth because of the way we communicate to each other.
Right.
Right. And it's not as just very bland and boring like the lecture that you saw freshman year in college.
Right.
Right. Where it's just droning on through a mic on their waist.
Yeah.
Right. And I think high communications is very, very purposeful and important. And then self-assurance.
Yeah.
The ability to present yourself and be confident in who you are, right? And be comfortable in your own skin is really important, right? Because, you're an architect, right? If you go to a client and you say, yeah, I'm an architect.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, I do pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But if you go to your client, like, hey, I'm an architect. And like, look at all this cool stuff that we've built and like the design inspiration I get from Barcelona through my trips and my worldly adventures and my family. And like, that's what a client really attaches to.
Right.
Right. Is the confident in knowing that, hey, like this guy can really deliver.
Sure.
Right. The relationships I've created, and kind of the hopefully the reputation I have is through delivery, right? Like if Riley says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. Whether it is building a medical office building, installing pre-manufactured walls, is like Riley's known for getting things done.
That's right.
And so like that's the confidence you have to go forward with, right? And I think just, for as well, like another trait for business development or sales and kind of is patience.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's nothing is going to happen overnight. I will tell you, in any new role that's related to business development, sales, or thereof, is that it's going to take at least 2 years.
Oh yeah, it's years.
Years.
Yeah.
Right, and that still might not be enough to what you fulfill as success.
Yeah.
Right. And so, even into this current job I'm in, like I imagine like the next day it was going to be immediate success, and I was like, Riley, you idiot! Like, come on, like think this through. Yeah. Right? Is patience is king. Right? Yeah. It's like you can't wear out a client to get a job.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to enjoy you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's intentional delivery, the right stages, and the right path, and the right way.
Yeah.
That will get you to that opportunity that eventually you'll get a shot.
Sure. And sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, is that you're so anxious or desperate for the sale that you just come across in a way that now they don't want to do business with you.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Nobody wants to do business with somebody who's desperate. Nobody.
Correct.
That's because it's uncomfortable. Even if they want to help the person.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's enjoying and having fun.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about when you mention, how you're selling yourself, your confidence, how people relate to you. That is where I really think the big thing we have right now that is a big hole in our industry. It's how do you leverage technology to amplify that? Mm-hmm. Because what I've been realizing is I may not be physically talking to a lot of people, telling them what I think or who I am or how I see things. But sometimes I run into somebody in a networking event and they're like, oh my God, I listened to your podcast, man. They already know a lot about me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Yeah. Even to the point that the process where they know, like, and trust the person is already happening with me present. Yeah. Many times, people come to me ready to buy. I didn't have to get them to know me or like me because the digital LinkedIn, Instagram, and the podcast, if they follow it, is because they like it. If they keep listening, now when they meet me, they're ready. And I think that's a huge thing that our industry is not utilizing because it's basically taking all the skills and value that you know and use, but imagine multiplying that 1,000 times.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a product, then you don't talk, then you're not going to be talking about a specific thing.
Right.
Right. And it's all about the experience. Right. Yeah. So people are coming up to you because of your podcast. Have you on this podcast have slides of your projects flying past and saying like speed to process or speed to delivery, things like that, like catchphrases that some architects may use? Right. No, never, not once. Right. But people want to work with you. Yeah. Right. Because they're learning more about you as a person.
Sure.
Right. And that's what's really key for any like business development is almost a passive thing. Mm-hmm. Right. It is almost about just being who you are and talking about who you are and what you do, and not trying to say, hey, look, like, yeah, we're number 1 in life science. We're number 2 in data center, right? Like those are great stats, but like at the end of the day, it's like, that's just a pitch. Yeah. Right. And clients get pitched every day a widget.
Every day. Yeah.
And it's like, they don't want to hear another pitch, right? Like if they're listening to you, they already know you're a great general contractor.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, but they want to get to know you. Like that's what's really important. And they want to get to know your people.
Yeah.
Even more.
How do you overcome when people knows you and they're buying your business, but they know you're not going to be delivering the project?
Yeah. I think in my previous role when I was at CBI that I could say that I was going to be delivering it. Mm-hmm. And it was a little bit more comfortable.
Sure.
Right. And the conversations today, right, that I'm having is like, you create the opportunity and then you're like, all right, well, I'm going to bring the brains in now. Yeah. And the guys that are like really skilled at this. And I would tell you that if you're ever seeing me out, and I'm having a meeting with someone or lunch, I'm never alone, right? I'm always introducing one of our extremely talented individuals at DPR.
Yeah.
Right. Because at the end of the day, like what we're selling is people, right? Like I can't sell you a brick, right? I'm selling you the people that are going to deliver the project.
Yeah.
And they are just so easy to sell.
Yeah.
They're such great people, so talented with just incredible diverse backgrounds that clients just absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And so that's really, that's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I have contractors in the podcast, I ask a question that I always love to know the answer. What's your biggest frustration with architects?
I thought you were asking me about my fee. I was like,
No.
Don't do that.
That's the follow-up question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I know, like, I've heard answers like they're an unnecessary evil, and I'm like, oh shoot.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I absolutely adore architects. I think that's one of my favorite group of people that I've met in my career.
Yeah.
I find myself as I want to be a creative mind.
Yeah.
I just wish I had the actual skill set. I just wish I had it. My sister's got all of it, and I'm just absolutely not creative whatsoever. So what are my opinion on architects? I think they are a completely necessary part of what we do every single day. Design is one of the things that gets us exciting, right? We told you we build technical projects.
Yeah.
How has that started?
Right.
There's got to be a designer in there somewhere messing with things, right? And so, I love interacting with them every single day. And the purpose for them is I was thinking about, earlier today, it's like workplace strategy and culture and brand and bringing back to the workplace. Who's going to solve that? Architects.
Yeah.
How do you make a office more exciting to come back to? It's not a general contractor.
Yeah.
The ideas are on paper. We just build what's on the paper, right? Yes, of course, we have awesome tools and processes to make that delivery incredible. But the architects have the brain and the mind, the mindset and the design.
But there's got to be something you're frustrated with architects. Just say generic.
Frustrated with architects. If I just have to go ahead and let it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can get a little full of themselves, right? And they don't respect the skill sets of their partners.
Yeah.
Right. I will tell you that and the role that I'm in is that you'll talk to one architect and they're the most friendliest person you'll ever meet.
Right.
You talk to the next architect that I'm not introducing always new people.
Sure.
Right. And their response is, you're just another general contractor.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, buddy, we're partners here.
Yeah.
Right. We're both chasing
on the same
side. Client.
Yeah. We're on the same side.
You don't need to push me into a corner here, buddy. And that's one of those things is I love connecting with those architects that are just we love what you do. You got a great brand. Seems like we're kind of on the same path and let's go get a job. And then there's other architects that are just you're a dime a dozen. There's a billion GCs out there that can put in that can install that. And so I think that's an old school way. Yeah. Right. You're clearly not that person. And it's funny when you start running into those things. It's see you later, buddy. You're gonna be left in the dark.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Because me and Jack, we're going places. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, because there are a lot of things that I see with the architectural profession that I think they're wrong. And I think somewhere along the lines past in years, people started behaving one way in the community and it stayed that way. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense. And a lot of that, to me, is the disconnection with our partners that are contractors. That's why, the power of design is the intersection of design, construction, and real estate. Real estate is who's generating the loan to make that building happen.
Yeah.
Who's the banker?
Yeah.
They're part of the thing. The building will never happen if there is not a money deal happening or generated or something. They're also part of the team. The brokers, property management, they're taking care of the building. And what we're doing is design just takes it from here and I put it here, and then you take it from here and you take it somewhere else. And the way you respect and interact with each side, when you know the value that you bring, the overlapping is as amicable and as friendly and as helpful both ways. And then that's when I see success. You really value, all right, you're the expert, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Versus trying to be an architect, want to be a contractor. Or I have contractors who are great designers and they come and design the space, or they're telling the client how to design things. I'm like, dude, I understand you wanting to help, but this is not your area of expertise.
It comes back a lot to delivery models.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Right. Because, traditional delivery model, right, is like owner has a need, owner hires an architect designs the need, contractor comes in and prices it. But the issue is price comes up too high.
Yeah.
Redesign. Time goes on. Price works. Now you're delayed by that VE process.
Yeah.
Right. And so different implementations now. And so that process, right, created, I feel like, that old school mentality of like, I'm that like overarching like architect guy or gal that tells you, all right, like you're just a dime a dozen contractor. You're just going to tell me I'm too expensive or my design's wrong. And so that's the work that we're doing in that very technical world that we like to live in is things like design build and target value design, where it's a very collaborative approach, like you're talking about, that intersection of all those different people. Because if you keep building all these things at the same time, design with construction, design with pricing, it allows you to get to that final cost, to the budget the client needs, so you can start the project faster.
Right.
So a lot of these really intricate projects we do have had kind of a short burn on design, because we're able to design and price and on our end, we do a ton of visual design construction, right? VDC that we call it, BIM modeling and things like that, where like an architect, certainly has a BIM drawing. Yeah. But we take constructability and apply it to that at the same process.
To it.
Right. And so like by the time we get to the field, we've already built it 2 or 3 times digitally.
Nice.
Right. And so that's what allows us to take a drawing that, that you'll do, and then we'll go through and we'll do, QA, QC to it. And by the time we get to the field, our superintendent's already seen how it gets built.
Sure.
He's just bringing the parts in to put them together. Yeah.
So following up on that comment, what do you think is going to be the future of construction? 10, 20 years down the road?
It's I think that's kind of implying where I was just headed, right? Is construction is going to be only an application of what's already been done digitally, right? And it's going to be just about the assembly of parts and pieces, right? Right now, what DPR is doing is pushing them all to prefab. Prefab is a huge buzzword, right? We have been doing prefab for 20 years, and we really like to be the leader in that space. We have factories across the United States producing solutions that we have designed and developed. And it's all about, not necessarily like trying to reduce costs. Certainly it does. Or increasing or bettering your schedule. It certainly does. But it's about increasing site safety. It's about reducing risk in the field. It's about making our lives easier and having less people on projects, right? During COVID, right? Our projects that were full prefab had 20% less people on them, right? Like that's huge.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so those are things that are important for us is to think about, all right, well, how much of this data center can be pre-manufactured?
Sure.
And then we just kind of plug and play it.
Yeah.
Right. We're building like the JW Marriott that we did uptown, right? Those are every bathroom that you walk in there was actually built in Orlando, and we just plugged it into the building and hooked it up, right? Like that's technology.
Yeah, that's exciting because you're doing a lot of things. Reducing costs, building faster. The design is probably more control.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just so many benefits to it. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and what's great about DPR is that we actually have a bunch of we have 3 core values, of course, but we have one that's ever forward. And what's really important is that ever forward is we have an entire innovation team that sits within DPR, And actually, the global head actually sits in Charlotte. It's really cool to be right near the guy. His name's Tim. He's an awesome guy. And what he does every single day is that he researches technologies that are not construction related, and innovations that are not construction related. And how can we apply those to construction, right?
Nice.
The initial beginnings of Revit and BIM and those types of technologies were things that we implemented during very first phases.
Yeah.
Right. And helped with the IP and the generation of those things. And
Yeah.
Dusty the robot, you've probably heard about the little guy that like jumps around. That was our IP that we sold off, right? Because we wanted to be on the very front end of that development.
Yeah.
We actually have the prototype in Charlotte. It's sitting in our warehouse in a big box. It looks completely different than the little great robots nowadays. But we sit there and our management committee is so focused on doing this that we have internal grants. And so if you come to us with an idea, we will grant you the research and development of that idea till implementation, right?
Awesome.
We figured out a way to do core drills during slab pours,
Yeah.
right? And that was innovation one of our superintendents brought to us, right? And so, it's just different ways about doing things. But innovation and technology are always, you're only going to get better through technology if you embrace it.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of old gritty superintendents that, still don't go through and do their schedule updates.
Sure.
But we have the new guys that are coming in that just really live by the BIM and by the access of their drawings on their iPad and have it on their hip every single day. Getting the updates from Jack through BIM saying, hey, look, I made this quick change on page A21,
Sure.
right? Like that's the kind of stuff that is going to live and it's going to change our world through technology in the future.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I would like to keep talking for 2 more hours, but my 5-year-old is waiting for me to go to the pool and I cannot miss that appointment.
Yeah.
But man, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here. You've always been doing a lot of great things in our industry, in the community, and I really admire everything that you're doing. And I think you're gonna do amazing things. So thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Jack. This has been incredible.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content. And find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.